Guten Tag and happy Oktoberfest. This is Chop and Brew. I am Chip Walton, and it is the most wonderful time of the beer year right now, Oktoberfest season. As we all know, unfortunately, many an Oktoberfest celebration has been canceled or called off or postponed, including the Oktoberfest in Germany. But we're not going to let that stop us. We are not going to let that slow us down during our best and favorite beer holiday of the year. We've got us the first ever Chop and Brew virtual Oktoberfest Fest. I recently met up with this guy who is uber obsessed with Oktoberfest. His name is Vince Hucek. He lives in Milwaukee. He has an Oktoberfest challenge every year. We get together, we taste our way through 4 very different Oktoberfests. We talk about what we like in an Oktoberfest, what we don't like. We talk about our favorite riffs on the style, our emotional attachment to 2 very specific Oktoberfests, and we talk about the Oktoberfest challenge that he does. It's basically an Oktoberfest bracket. And of course, we show each other a few of our favorite Steins and tell the story behind them. So I know there's no such thing as a true replacement for the camaraderie and the brother and sisterhood of being under a tent with thousands of people, but I do hope that this brings a smile to a lot of Chop and Brew fans, and as well as like some knowledge and some like maybe insights to Oktoberfest you hadn't thought of. Things about 30 minutes, 30 plus, so there's probably enough time for you to drink at least 1, 2, or 3 Oktoberfest. Go grab your favorite Oktoberfest or fests and your favorite Stein, and let's do this thing. Vince, beer number 1 in our flight of 4. What we got?
Excellent. We got some spotting. Oh,
Boom.
find my labels right. There we go.
Cheers, brother. Prost, prosit. So I thought we would kind of approach this episode kind of like an episode of Hot Ones, which is a show that we have in mutual admiration for. So I was thinking, well, for each of our 4 beers, we'll kind of go through like a topical discussion, and
Cool.
then we'll do kind of a tasting note, except we won't be like crying, and Sean won't be like, watch it around your eyes. Be careful around your eyes.
No kidding.
So yeah, prost, brother. Beer
Cheers.
1. So this is our only international entry in the virtual Oktoberfest Fest. Why did you pick this?
So spotting to me, I think is like a great example of German Oktoberfest that like leans more towards like a Marzen, where like a lot of the German Oktoberfests are much more like traditional fest beer. Personally, I am more into like the more American Oktoberfest, kind of like a little bit darker, more Marzen style. And so I think Spaten is like the quintessential German example of that still does that, where like a Hofbrau is much more like light. You're gonna get like a 6, like a 5 or 6 SRM, like a very light, different kind of beer.
Which leads me to the question for this beer. And I wanted to kind of just talk about the style specifically. Yeah. What do you expect? And you kind of just went into this. What do you expect when you have an Oktoberfest, I guess, from abroad and domestically, but just in general, like what are like the 5 things that you got to have?
Yeah. So what I think of what I want to really have, I'm looking for like more kind of orangey, almost amber, like a 11-12 SRM, more orangish, on that verge of amber. Sometimes they go a little bit too dark, but kind of right in between that edge. A good, like kind of bready, like earthy, kind of aroma to it is the kind of the big key that I'm always looking for. Not much as far as like hops, very little hop at all. Then I think the biggest thing that I look for out of any Oktoberfest is like a real crisp, clean bitterness. So like good bitterness, but not anything that lingers. I want that like really crisp kind of edge to it, which I think is really the like quintessential Oktoberfest thing to me. Malty, but not too malty, like a very well balanced, a little bit of caramel, maybe a little bit of like kind of bready or like roasty a little bit.
I looked at the BJCP style guidelines real quick before this, and I was surprised, but also it made sense that they talk about the dryness.
Yes.
For a beer that's this malty and has things like bready, toasty, sweet kind of thrown out there, it's like its target final gravity, I think, is like 10 to 14, I think.
I think that's the hardest thing to do. I think lots of breweries get most of the pieces. I think that's the most like frequently missing thing that I will notice when I drink somebody's Oktoberfest. They're like, "Oh yeah, this is really good," and I'll drink it and go like, "Yeah, but you know what? It's not. It's not crisp and dry. It's still like, yeah,
Really under attenuated, right? I mean, like,
yeah,
like it just finishes higher.
Yep.
Than you would think, and people want to think that a malty beer should do that, and that's where the sweetness comes from. You're like, oh no, I think it actually comes from the character of the malt.
Yep.
Even after it's fermented out, the malt has a richness, has a body, has a character. So what do you think about Spaten?
I think Spaten is like great as always. This is one of the beers that like when people tell me they're into Oktoberfest, I go like, okay, have you had a Spaten? Because if you haven't, you have to. It's like the great kind of example. Excellent, I think, again this year.
Yeah, and imported, I feel like it held up well. Like I might get a hint of oxidation, but it might not even be that. It really just might be psychological because you see a green bottle, you see imported, you think you're going to get it. I felt like the first couple I had out of the 6-pack had that, and the last two I've had, I'm like, I was tripping.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I like is that consistently considering all those factors, it seems like it feels like it does a really good job, even considering it crossed an ocean in a green bottle.
So beer number 2. This is from Summit Brewing Company in St. Paul, Minnesota. My wife works there. I used to work there.
Okay.
So the one thing I will say about this is like it gets a reputation for being one of the bigger. You know, there's beers like Uber Oktoberfest that Liney's will do every so often as like a fall seasonal that are bigger. They're almost trying to make like an imperial Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
But Summit's just by nature, it changes slightly every year, but I would say it's always 6.8 to 7.1. I mean, it's a bigger one. It's got a pretty close place in my heart. I would think, honestly, like I didn't know much about Oktoberfests until I started working there, because they're such a lager focused brewery with a lot of their traditional German brew house and stuff. Yeah, this beer means like the end of summer to me. Like I always have my first one at the state fair, which it might be 100 and you're slamming 7.1 Oktoberfest, or it might be like 62 and everybody's in sweatshirts for the first time. So it really is like a change of season beer. Besides just being like, I used to represent it and know a lot about it. Still represent it.
That's like so similar to the story that got me into Oktoberfest too, with one of the beers that we're going to do later for similar reasons.
Well, that's the question for this beer is like, where did you find this love and this loyalty? Because in the next beer, we're going to talk about how deep your obsession goes. But yeah, like how did you I came across this late, but was this like an early style you learned to love or what?
It wasn't, so not super early. So like a 2-part story for how I got hooked on Oktoberfest, basically. In 2016, I got diagnosed with leukemia, which like happy story because at Christmas last year, I did my last dose of chemo and I am officially 9 months chemo sober. So
wow, dude, you just put chills down my spine. I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah. So so I had been like into craft beer already before that, but through all the chemo stuff, I missed a year of work. I had plenty of time to like sit at the house and just like not do a whole lot. And I had been thinking about taking up home brewing for a long time. And it was really like the perfect hobby to get into at that time because your immune system is low. So everything has to be super sanitary. Well, what's the key to making good beer? Everything's got to be super sanitary. So it was like the perfect hobby to take up. And then, so that's like part 1 of the story. As I started getting into actually making beer instead of just like drinking craft beer and going like, yeah, this is good. And then just kind of moving on from slamming IPAs to doing something else. But then also a big thing in my family is deer hunting season. And so that fall of 2016, I got some beer to go up to go deer hunting, and New Glarus Staghorn, the deer, or the not the deer, the beer that we're gonna do last has a big, so Staghorn has a big buck on it, and I thought like, all right, well, this would be a cool beer to bring up for deer hunting. It's, you know, 'tis the season. And I was sitting there at deer camp drinking this beer going, this is really, really, really good. I got to figure out like what is going on here. And so that was kind of the beginning of me getting hooked on Oktoberfest.
Dude, that's awesome. Did you get a buck that year?
Not that year, but I did the year before, and I have every year after. So
oh, maybe too much Staghorn.
yeah, maybe.
So what do you think of the Summit? So this is a regional beer. You know, we went from international to regional.
I like there's something distinctly different about like the two of them, right? A little less, maybe a little less body to it, but you definitely feel that extra like percent or whatever it is of alcohol. Right away, I get like, okay, a little bit more alcohol when you can like tell the warming. Very good. When we were talking about like kind of earthy notes, when I'm looking for aroma, I'm getting that right away, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, you know, because I figured we'd nerd out a little bit. The Spaten, you can't, I mean, I couldn't find much. I also didn't dig much. But Summit is Moravian 37, which is kind of like a custom pills that they have from the founder's actual like family farm in North Dakota. Wow. Crystal, Munich, two-row. So there's kind of like this 1-2 punch of two-row and pills.
Yeah.
Northern Brewer, Tettnanger, Sots, 15, Plato, OG, IBU 30. This kind of fluctuates a little bit, I think, year to year. To me, between these two and between the four that I know we're going to drink, and knowing what Summit's Oktoberfest has been like, it seems a little more balanced. It's a little, I'm not going to say it's bitter at all, but it's definitely like more bitter balanced. There are years where this is like a really luscious like malt bomb.
Okay.
This year, kind of going back to that, it's 7.1 or 6.8, but it drinks dry. Out of the four of them, I also would give it the like creamy adjective, probably more than any of the other three.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's kind of got, it seems like overly cliche to use this, but it does have that like sherry kind of creaminess, that this coatingness. The cool thing is it like dissipates by the end, and it doesn't just like sit there and be like, now I'm sucking on, you know, I licked the lid of some malt extract and it's just sitting on my tongue. We've all been there.
You talk about licking a malt syrup. One of the beers that I was doing for my Oktoberfest challenge thing that I do, I was like, that was what I wrote down in my tasting notes.
Oh, really?
Like, feels like I was tasting
Yeah.
Just straight malt syrup.
Oof. So I have a note here that maybe we would talk about our Steins. Do you have a couple of Steins?
Ooh, yeah.
That you want to showcase?
I have a couple that I could show off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one cool old style one.
Nice.
Which has like some like historic Americana landscapes. My kids, I have a couple little boys, and they all love that. Like, it's from like the 80s. They did all kinds of like limited edition stuff through old style for a while, and it's got like, you can feel the texture to it. And so my kids always nerd out about like, hey dad, can we see that cup again? Show me the other picture. So I like that one a lot. And then the other one is like, this is really super like niche, but it's a Miller Stein. So I'm in Milwaukee, so that was kind of cool. And I found this, I'm trying to remember where. I don't know if it was a rummage sale or like somebody giving it away, but it's Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. It's a Stein that is commemorating the first successful flight. So the Wright brothers flight, and it's like 100,
oh my gosh, dude.
131 years after making it. So it's like one of their, I don't know, for some reason they were doing some art on there. So you got like Frederick Miller on the bottom and like Miller Brewery stuff.
I have this, like, this is my oldest one. Our friend Greg Fitz gave me, Jake, and Mike, everybody in the Bruin TV little crew, this old Hams one. This is from 73.
That's cool. Yeah.
It's cool. It's like got some texture and raised, and Lord knows where this was poured into, but
Yeah,
I
no
like this
kidding.
one. And then I have this one. Like you said, it's modern. It's slick. It's not textured,
Yeah.
but it's a Summit. So
Yeah.
Summit throws an Oktoberfest at the fairgrounds the first weekend of October, which it won't be happening this year. But during the days when I worked there, like I just had free reign of the places. They're like social media nerd, and Elsa
Yeah.
and I would go and just eat all the like sour braten. Let me get this to focus. Sour braten and stuff. And then this one has a cool story. It's glass. So we're gonna drink Sierra Nevada next, but
Yeah.
they're kind of popular because they do a collaboration each year with a German brewery, and it does rotate. So I went to this like blogger, like beer writer and bloggers conference. I couldn't even tell you what year. It's when I worked at Summit. And so we go to the Sierra Nevada, and no one told us this. We go to the Sierra Nevada plant in North Carolina. It's our conference in Nashville. They bus us out. It's an awesome bus ride. We get the full like King's Kid tour of the North Carolina plant. And then they're like, we're gonna take y'all down to the river. And you go down this like wooded path. And there's a river with this like just flat, kind of like awesome party picnic space. And they start like giving us the first pours of their Oktoberfest this year. So,
Whoa.
and this would have been in like late August or early September. I was like, this is crazy. And then all of a sudden, like people
Yeah.
show up with all these cameras and stuff. And I was like, what is going on? So now if you go to YouTube, they basically use the blogger conference crew as their extras
No
for
kidding.
their like promo video for their Oktoberfest this year. And like there's people playing like the accordions and the oompas, and dude, it was just like I probably would have gotten rid of this glass. You know what it's like having to purge glassware
Yeah.
like once a year.
Yeah.
Every year this makes the cut because it's just like such a
Yep.
great memory. And I got this little one. Mama's made this one for the little boy to be.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's actually her handprint. She did like boop,
Oh yeah,
boop,
okay.
doo, doo, doo. And then the beauty of this thing is it holds 16 ounces perfectly, like a pounder
That's
can
awesome.
to the lip.
Yep.
Before we get to beer number 3, I got to interrupt the festival real quick to roll out some barrels of gratitude to our partners who help keep Chop and Brew rolling along like a barrel. First up, the crew at Bsg Handcraft. They're responsible for bringing some of the best malts you can get into the US from Europe, including Weirmann, which of course you're using if you're thinking about Oktoberfest. Also, our pals at Imperial Yeast, who carry a full line of wonderful lager strains to get you to where you want to be for your Marzen style Oktoberfest or your fest beer, or even a Kvike or ale yeast if you waited too long and you got to turn it around real quick. And as always, the Patreon party people, man, y'all keep this thing going every month. I really appreciate y'all more than you know. So if you want to join that crew of people, hit up patreon.com/chopandbrew. Let's get back to the fest. Beer number 3, bro. They're starting to
Let's
get
do it.
spicy. So we agreed we would do Sierra Nevada, and just as I mentioned, like Sierra Nevada, at least for the last 3, 4, 5 years, their Oktoberfest has been a collaboration with the brewery from Germany, and I believe the
Yep.
people from Germany come here, and they do what collaborations do. They get together, they brew, and then they put it out. This year, I assume because of all the travel restrictions with COVID, this year they put out just an Oktoberfest under
Yeah.
their own label. They claim their website says it's 6.0%. And Vince and I, who have already had this, have some thoughts about this beer. That sounds like we're about to throw it under a bus, which we're
Yeah,
not.
no kidding, huh?
While we drink this and think about it, I want to talk about your obsession a little bit more. So the way we met is through Northern Brewer, my day job, and we got to just chatting, and you were like, you want to be part of this bracket?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I'm man enough, but tell people what your bracket is.
Yeah. So in the last 3 years, I've been doing this Oktoberfest challenge, I call it, where the last 2 years I lined up beers in 24 beers in a bracket. 2018 and 2019, it was 4 categories. I did national beers, I did international beers, I did state so Wisconsin beers, and then some local Milwaukee beers, or like kind of greater Milwaukee metro, to kind of be seeing like the best of what's out there. And so I would take people's recommendations and just see like, all right, what does everybody like? But then also, what could I get my hands on, and run a bracket where the first year it was just kind of like random seated. And then last year everything was grouped up initially in like pool play, where it was all the Wisconsin beers against each other, all of the uh,
Oh,
national beers against each other.
your final four is an international and
So,
a
yep,
national, MKE and a Wisconsin. Okay, I got
absolutely.
you.
Yep. So there were four regionals. Yeah. So it was like, it was last year, Spaten, um, Staghorn, Venture, which is a Milwaukee brewery, and I think Sierra Nevada. I'm pretty sure last year was the final four. And then the beer that we're gonna do next, Staghorn, was the kind of the grand champion. These beers to me are all like great exemplars of what it is to be an Oktoberfest. This year, because of all the COVID stuff, a bar close to where I live in Milwaukee, they usually do a big Oktoberfest like celebration, and they bring in 40 different beers on tap and like throw a big party and shut their whole parking lot down and throw their Oktoberfest. This year, all the people that are like on their typical guest list, they sent out a survey and they all said, we don't want to come in. So what they did was they put together mixed cases, 20 different Wisconsin Oktoberfest beers. And so I went, okay, for such a time as this, like let's do that. Let's zoom in on just the Wisconsin beers. And I don't have to do the legwork of picking, 24 different individual beers. It all came in a crate.
No, oh, so this year your bracket is all Wisconsin? I mean,
This
clearly
year,
you've drank other ones, but like
yes.
you're boiling down. That's because somebody already built it for you.
Yeah. Somebody already built it. And so
That's
I'm
rad.
calling it the 12 days of Oktoberfest, where I'm doing matched pairs. Yeah. It's like, Christmas in
Yeah,
September.
yeah.
I'm doing matched pairs, and people can go on Instagram or on Facebook and look up hashtag Oktoberfest challenge, and I'll pair two of those beers together, give a recommendation and a score for the winning one, and some tasting notes and just some like recommendation of
Yeah.
the beer that I preferred.
That's awesome, dude. So what do you think of this year's Sierra Nevada?
Well, so we were talking a little bit before about how Oktoberfest beers break down into like two categories. It's either a fest beer or it's a Marzen. This is not a Marzen, which is my like preferred of the two. And so it's very fest beer. But then like it's fest beer, but like kind of tangential, which sometimes you get into with some of the, and I've noticed that
Yeah.
a lot in some of the beers that I've been doing in this year's bracket, is that like they are fest beer adjacent kind of,
Yeah.
which is what I would personally classify this as, where it's like very kind of sweet, like candy sweet almost kind of. And as far as like, there is some bitterness, but there's a lasting kind of candy sweet to it that is so different and it's just unexpected.
Yeah.
So we sounded like we were gonna drag it through the mud, which I'm not gonna do.
No,
It's a delicious beer.
it
It's just
is.
when I think of Oktoberfest,
Yeah.
this is not what comes to mind.
Yeah, I was like toasted bread, almost like orange jam.
Mm-hmm.
And I said a bit of candy sweetness. Still got that crisp lager character.
Yep.
Um, I don't know. I was like, my overall nerd was like, I get more of a Vienna foundation than a Munich
Yeah.
punch. Nice, different from past years. I just think it's fest beer, like you said. It's almost like imperial fest beer,
Yes.
because when I think fest beer, I think something that's like 4% too.
Yep.
This is 6%, but I mean, you can tell by the color. This is the blondest
Right.
for
Right.
sure. I mean, this is not Pilsner
Yeah.
pale, but this is definitely not red, orange, burnt bronzy. It's kind of cool to have something with a little twist on it, because I just feel like so many other beers are, I wouldn't say they're the same, but they're definitely chasing a similar thing, but you can tell between these three. I mean, this is bad because they're like different amounts of full, but Sierra Nevada here is definitely just lighter, and I like it. I mean, I still like it. It's just, and I was going to ask you this as a brewer, like I always kind of ascribe to a lot of Oktoberfest this like twang, and I want to just call it like, I just call it like fall leaf or almost like tea. But then when you read the guidelines, there's nothing that really talks about where that would come from. Is that roasted malt mixed with the lager yeast? Like, where does that like twang? Because this doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Is the thing that I'm kind of saying here. Whereas these other two definitely do.
Yep.
Where's that twang? And it's not like rusty, and it's not, I don't want to call it off. It's just this thing that I've noticed that Oktoberfest have.
So the beer that I tried last night, that took second in the pairing is from Explorium, which is in like Greendale, which is a Milwaukee suburb. Had exactly what you were talking about. And I was talking about it with a friend of mine who was just asking about some of the tasting notes because it didn't win. So I don't give like long tasting notes on the beer that doesn't win. And so a friend of mine was asking about it, and I was explaining that I was like, it's got this kind of like twang to it that I think is a yeast thing.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that, I don't know the science on it, but that would be my guess, is that exact flavor that you're talking about. I think that is a yeast thing.
It's like, yeah, and I don't want to dwell on this because we're just going to like sidetrack the whole thing, but it's almost like the mouthfeel of something that's tart, but without the acid. So I don't know what to, and it must just be, maybe it's just that like deep Munich malt presence, but without, say, something like a Dunkel that would take that Munich like all the way, like Munich and porter. And it's like, oh, this is what happens when you have Pils malt and a little of these like Munich Vienna malt. Yeah, I don't know, but I appreciate it. I just can never, and I feel like when I tell people that, they're like, dude, you're mis-explaining this, or that should be an off flavor note. And I'm like, no, it's not an off flavor note. It's just what's there.
I think it's very typical of certain kinds of Oktoberfest beers. And so I wonder if that's like a yeast strain thing or a specific malt bill, like you were saying.
All right, dude. Beer number 4. It's been the champion.
Yep.
Act like you've been here.
It does every year.
How many years has this been on top, or like damn close?
So I have done this. This is the 3rd year, and it is gonna be 3 for 3, unless there is an absolute. I have 3 pairings left, unless there's like some absolute shocker that comes out of left field.
Oh, that's right, because you have the pleasure of this being in your Wisconsin mix pack.
Yeah.
So many other people would not be able to say that about their state.
Right. I have arguably, what I would argue is the best American Oktoberfest. Cheers. In the country. I think. Especially for my money, having it right in my backyard. It's the crown jewel. If you look, if anybody reads the post that I put on Instagram and Facebook, that I lead with, like, this is the crown jewel. This is what I look for in like every exemplar.
I love the carbonation, but I also noted that a lot of these beers have a really good carbonation. Like, it's kind of cool that people would put that, against the malt.
Yep.
To also accentuate that dryness, to make sure it doesn't finish like malt syrup. So what do you love about this? I mean, and we could also, preface by saying what you already said earlier is like, we both have these emotional attachments to at least one Oktoberfest.
Right.
But even if you were tasting this blind, why would it kind of like rise to the top?
It's always fresh. You're always getting great aroma. You're always getting great head retention. You're always getting just exactly what you expect, which is so interesting coming from like not a big macro brewery. I like, the color is right kind of in there where you want it to be, in that nice, like deep orange, like verging on amber kind of color to it. And then it just consistently has that very like good, like great balance between like malt and that clean, crisp bitterness. that I'm kind of like quintessentially looking for. You get a little bit of like a spicy kind of citrus kind of edge to it, but very well balanced and just solid overall.
I will say, once again, Deb Carey's copy on her bottles are nothing short of like,
Aren't they
like,
just, there's something, huh?
I mean, they're like informative and trolly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wisconsin's real red, right?
she explained, yeah, right. 100% natural, great Midwestern and European malts, the world's most expensive hops, gold-plated Zanz, fresh yeast from Germany, and then she puts in quotes twice, Wisconsin's real red. What?
Uh-huh.
What?
Shots fired.
I love that. You know, but then like
it pays to be the king.
So what was the question for this? Yeah, any tips on brewing an Oktoberfest? Have you brewed any, or is this not a space you want to go to? Do you want to talk about something else?
Man, my confession is that like I'm so into this that I'm afraid. This is the only beer that I'm like afraid to brew. Cause I am like so deeply into it that I go like, oh man, is this even like something that I want to dabble in? So I tried once a couple years ago and got like immediately just kind of passed it off to everybody as like, well, I was just making a lager beer. It was like I wasn't trying to make an Oktoberfest. This is just And I'm honestly like, this is the one beer that I'm like afraid to try and make.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's real ground. Well, let me ask you that. This was my alternate question for this beer. What is, especially since you've had a lot of them over the last few years, kind of what's your favorite riff? I'll throw out there, like I did this episode in New York where this guy had made like a smoked, he basically called it like a raw Oktoberfest.
Yep.
Amazing. And then the aforementioned Uber Oktoberfest. Dude, when I could find that, it comes out maybe every 2 or 3 years and maybe never ever again. But man, Leinie's Uber Oktoberfest was like what barley wine would be if it was an Oktoberfest. So like, what kind of riffs have you seen on this style that you thought worked instead of just being like straight gimmick?
So just like 2 days ago in the 12 days of Oktoberfest, I had that exact experience where I had two that were both, and I like put them together because I was kind of expecting this, but then it really, like, they did a great job of showing out. There were two beers. One of them did an oaked Oktoberfest. So they call it Oktoberfest, and it's aged in bourbon barrels. And that was one that I thought they did a fantastic job, where it was like everything in this is straight up fantastic Oktoberfest. And if they hadn't put it in bourbon barrels, it probably would have been like one of the ones where I go like, this is a really, really high ranking beer. Just because of that, it's so off from a traditional Oktoberfest that it didn't score great in like some of the scores, but I was saying in the recommendations, like, it's a fantastic beer. It's just not like when you expect Spaten or Sierra Nevada or Staghorn, you're like, that's not what you're getting. Let's just be clear. This is a niche beer that is tremendous. So that was from Carbon 4, which is a Wisconsin brewery.
Yeah.
Oktoberfest I thought was fantastic. And then Point Brewery, their Oktoberfest is a lot like Sierra Nevada, where it's very fest beer. It's really fruity. It's almost like Smarties, kind of like candy sweet. Which was like another like, this isn't what I would call an Oktoberfest, but this is a tremendous beer. So if you want to say this is your fest beer, like, I'm all about that. Go ahead. This is excellent. I love it. I just would never personally call that an Oktoberfest.
So Vince, out of these four beers, which is your favorite? Let's say this was the final four, regional, national, international, regional / state. Who's taking the Vince medal home?
Man,
wait, who's taking this home with them tonight?
Oh, if they're taking home the Prost Trophy, so I think it comes down to two beers, and then I think it's between Staghorn and Spaten.
Okay.
And honestly, I think whatever you want to personally drink between those two, I cannot fault you either way. I think these are two of the probably 3 to 5 best Oktoberfests that are available to the average American. Full stop. My heart goes out to Staghorn.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could pick between these two. If you're in America, well, because it's harder to get in anywhere but Wisconsin, it's harder to get Staghorn than it is to get Spaten.
You're about to make like a beer trading circuit happen. People are like hazy this, double pastry stout. This, I was like, what if Vince is responsible for like a lot of interstate trading of Staghorn?
This is it.
So here we are with our favorites for the flight, Summit Oktoberfest. What you got, Vince? One more time.
New Glarus Staghorn.
One of many reasons to come to Wisconsin. Dude, I appreciate you walking me through this, man. Your obsession, the checklist, your great backstory, your bracket, your fear of brewing.
Yeah.
Style. This has been legit good stuff. I'm glad that we gathered these beers. Everybody, let us know your favorite Oktoberfest. Maybe you'll school us. Who's doing it right? International, national.
Yeah, we got
regional.
kind of a border battle going on.
Yeah. Yeah, we had our Wisconsin, Minnesota thing happening. All right, y'all. Cheers, Vince. Chop for chop.
Brew for brew.
Man, this has been fun as hell, homie.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
What's going on, everybody? This is Chop and Brew. I am Chip Walton. I'm here with Vince Hucek. Is that
What's
right?
up? Yep.
God damn it.
Hucek.
Hucek. Son of a bitch.
You got it. It's okay. My 4th grade English teacher said, we can't say, when we were talking about names in plural, she said, we can't say your name in plural because it would be Huseks. And that's not appropriate for 4th graders. And I was
Why
like,
isn't that appropriate?
Like,
because it sounds like
it's not, you're not saying sex.
I don't understand that exercise. Like plural,
Me either.
like Waltons, all the Chip Waltons. That's my wife's nightmare. All right, here we go. This is a legit episode about Oktoberfest. We're gonna even turn our hat sideways. Just kidding. That's the vanilla ice of the Oktoberfest world. What up, everybody? I'm here with Vince.
Shoot that one more time.
Hucek.
Hucek.
Like Joan Cusack.
Yes.
That'll be in the blooper reel. All right. What up, everybody? I'm here with Vince Hucek. Hucek? It's sec, like secular.
Hue like a color. And then sec. Yeah.
Can I just call you Hucek?
You can call me whatever you want. Honest to God, I've heard it 1,000 different ways in my life. So the guy who was, well, he still is, the high school principal, my youngest sister just graduated in June.
Yeah.
And the superintendent, who has been the superintendent since I was in high school, jacked her name up 3 months ago, Chip, after literally 24 years of my family.
At graduation?
Yeah, at graduation. He
What
said,
did you call her?
I forget what he said. I think he said Hucek. And it was like, I was watching, because it was all on Facebook Live. And so I like spit taked. I was like recording the whole thing. And I like spit taked my beer as I'm watching my kid sister graduate. I was like, what in the world from, like you write it down phonetically, and literally she's the 5th kid. She's the last of 5. You couldn't, like, my guy, you have said 5 different times this name on stage.
That's hilarious.
What are you doing?
I have one more question to ask you, but I really have to use the restroom.
Yeah.
Do you want to take like a 3-minute break?
Yeah,
real
that
quick?
would be perfect. Let's do it. Meet you back here at 9:30.